So I've decided to create a short documentary on my swords and to show you exactly the steps I went through on how to create them and what I've done. To go over the parts and how my design has changed since I've started and where I plan to go. So let's get started. Okay, so first off here we got this pine sword, which is the first one I made, which some of you might remember. This one lasted fairly well. It has very soft dents. You can see it kind of got chainsawed. It was used quite often, but how it met its doom was based off the handle here. Being pine, it's soft and it was easily fractured and broke. And right along here on this edge was where it broke for the first time, and I re-glued it back together. But what happened was I swung it at a basketball and it broke. So I re-glued it back together and ended up breaking it again because of the type of wood it was. But it was a fairly simple design, just the short hilt with the pommel coming on, did some sanding, and yeah, so quillion, handle, and pommel. After that I switched to this oak, which I bought at the store. Worked pretty good. The first one I finished, which I believe is this one that is still a little bit broken, ended up breaking the first time we tested them. The other one here that I used for the longest amount of time lasted until I let Scott use it, and we ended up breaking it against my newer design, which you will see in a second. So I have just a basic pommel, same thing, and a handle, quillion. So this one, as you can see here, broke a little bit differently. This one was the latest one of the later ones that I did, and it was used for quite often. This one I didn't create the blade or the quillion. This was given to me by someone. I just did the hilts and the pommel to finish it up and clean it up. So this one I experimented and put a lead weight in here, which was fun, and it took me a while to figure out how to get that into a shape and then mold it. So molding lead was quite fun. This sword actually broke the two oak swords and ended up, being the one I use all the time. How it broke, though, was after I used it on my even newer crafted swords. So I got one more of these swords left of the ash, which this is ash, that's oak, and that was pine. And I got this short skein of a sword, which I experimented with the pommel just to kind of give it a little extra design and see how it would look. It was kind of fun. This one turned out pretty nice as well on the pommel. And that one I didn't like, it was kind of ugly. But after that I wanted to get in. Before these swords broke, I was trying to figure out how to sell them, or actually build them to sell. So I started with these Hickory Swords, which I have quite a few now. I actually sold 2 already, but this was the first design, and we went out and tested it. I had some faulty wood that I created the first one with, just because I knew it wasn't going to be good, which is why it's wrapped here. But I can show a picture of where it broke. And it was a fairly simple pommel design, just nailed in and glued, which what didn't last. And then as you can see, this quillion is loose as well. This one held up a little bit better and actually is still usable, but it's more of a prototype still, so I didn't like how it was crafted. With this one, you can't really see on the outside here because of the leather, but there is a huge gap in between this quillion. This one over here, you can see it a little bit better. That stuff in the side, that was filler that I used to fill the gap, which I didn't like, so I had to figure out how to craft it better and make it to where it was better, because floppy and loose means it would break sooner. I also didn't like how this pommel ended up, because it's not connected. There's a huge looking gap. It's it doesn't feel uniform or as one part of a sword. So when I started these ones, I believe I crafted this sword here first. This was my hand and a half. I wanted to create a hand and a half, so I changed the design of this pommel to where it molds a little bit better and it gets more fit right in. So as you can see, it almost looks seamless, but I just moved all of the cracks and seams to different spots on it, so that way it's more uniform, it's stronger, and it binds together. So I have here, you can see there's a layer of pine on top of this, and then another layer. It's a little bit thicker than the handle, so I had to do it a little bit strangely. So I layered the pine on top and then kind of cut it onto this, which I used to layer the handle, in order to lay it on top of that pine so that it's all glued on there. And then if you look at these swords, the oak ones, I had cut it back like this. So basically what I did is I just laid the pine over this and then used this to that, and that way it's solid, it's not going to move back and forth any direction. And then on the inside I've put a couple of nails on each one in order to basically secure it and make it to where it's even better. So as you'll notice, this is thicker than the handle blade. I went and I shaved this, that way when you look at the tops of these, there is almost seamless and no gap, and very tight, in order to give it a better fit. I do have problems still with gaps on this edge and that edge. I don't know how to fix that, but when I overlay the pine on top of in the hilt, it covers up the top gap, but it doesn't cover up the sides. So I just have to refine my method of how I trim that, and I can easily make it gapless, which on some of these swords, like this one, you can see I've gotten very close and it's seamless all around. So it's just a matter of refining my method and cleaning it up. So as these ones are even better, there's one that's a little bit worse and a little bit worse there. That one's good. So it's all handmade, so it's crafted a little bit. So there's going to be subtle differences in every type, even though. So I have basically here, you can see I got my one-handers. These are only designed for one hand. I kept the same kind of pommel design because I like that design right now. I don't know how to make a better design as of yet. Even my claymores have the same design. So I've sold 2 of them. They're going to go out and test them for me, and we'll see how long they last, type thing. And then I'm going to try and sell these. I have to make some more, obviously, of the hands and a halves. I only have this one. There is one fatal flaw with this one, which is why I still have it. I sold the 2 good ones already. Is where this is supposed to be about 1 inch longer on the quillion on each side. The quillions, so as far as history-wise, you can see that the quillions have kind of remained the same. The first one is a little bit more boxy, but it's not that bad. It's about the same design, just a little bit thicker. I tried to keep the blades a little bit thicker on my first 2 designs because I knew it wasn't good quality wood and that they were going to break, hoping that the thicker they were, or wider they were here, that they would last longer, which did prove to be quite true. They were a little bit more heavy and they were really fun to play with. This one, since it was given to me like this, was very thin all the way out, but it lasted very well until we used it against that hand and a half over there, and it broke. So it didn't last past the new generation, so I'm using one of these ones now instead. As far as the pommel, you can tell, like, this one was very simple. I just cut a block of wood and then put a nail through it on the ends in order to keep it secured to the handle. This one I just cut and then tried to glue it in these worked pretty good. And then I used the same design on these ones, and then tried on this one, you know, to cut it and make it to where it's more seamless, which worked pretty good, which is where my design was starting to go towards. And then the same thing with this one. These ones I just did simply to try and quickly do it, which turned out to be a bad idea. And this one already broke and fell off, so it doesn't hold together very well, although it adds a little bit more weight the way they are. So, and now with this design I really like it, and with overlaying the pine I could easily drill a circle inside and then fill it with lead in order to weight them. So I have to get some lead, and I can start weighting swords as well, which will be a lot of fun. But that's my next step, is I have to start weighting the swords. As far as the blades, you can tell with these ones that they start out thick and get thinner as they go, which my other blades did not do. And I did that only because of the type of wood it is with the hickory, and it absorbs a lot easier that way, and it'll actually last. Those ones, I didn't trust them, so I kept them thicker, which means these ones are a lot more limber and easier to use, and they feel a little bit lighter at the tips. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like it, if you want to see how I design stuff, maybe I can make some videos on how I do specific parts of the sword and create a tutorial. But I had a lot of fun making these, and I hope to keep making more.